Hey guys, so we've seen some pretty major developments in the United States Senate races for the 2022 midterms, especially in the state of Missouri. Because the state of Missouri, the race there for the Republican primary has changed a lot over just the last couple of hours, and that will really change the outcome of the race in Missouri. And this could, definitely make Missouri a blue state on the Senate level. So before we get started, make sure to join my Discord server if you have not. The link to which is at the very top of the description below. We have a pretty cool mock government on that, so make sure you join that if you have not. So taking a look at the Senate map here, I'm going to start off by just filling in the solid seats for both parties and then talking about why this is so alarming for the Republican Party. Because right now, the issue that the Republicans are facing right now is just the sheer amount of retirements that they currently have. There are just so many Republicans that are just retiring in 2022, and basically all the retirements are happening in the battleground states. There's really not a single Republican retiring in a solid state. The only solid state where we see a Republican incumbent retiring is Alabama. So the states in which there are basically they're solid, I've already filled in, and then the states that are basically battlegrounds I have right now in the gray, and then the states in which Republicans are retiring in, you have Alabama, that's the only one that is not competitive. The other retirements are from Pennsylvania with Pat Toomey, Richard Burr with North Carolina, Rob Portman in Ohio, and Roy Blunt in Missouri. Those are the 5 announced retirements so far, but there are definitely possible retirements in Wisconsin with Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson, as part of his 2016 re-election campaign, he promised that he would not be seeking a third term in 2022, but currently his intentions are unclear. And Iowa, Chuck Grassley has said that he's not going to make a decision until fall, and so that is going to be, I think, not too great for the GOP because they're going to have to try to find someone to replace him, and currently the front runner is his grandson, Pat Grassley. So in Iowa, the problem here is that Chuck Grassley is just so old that basically it'll be a little bit of a difficulty for him to run again. Definitely, he's already in his late 80s. He's already been there for a very, very long time. It'll be interesting to see if he does run for another term. He's served there since 1981. But for the state of Iowa, this is another close race, and Wisconsin is even closer. So really, the only race in which Republicans are not retiring in is Alabama, because Wisconsin, Iowa, I think there's a very good chance that both of these incumbents retire. Ron Johnson, he has the support of Donald Trump, but if he does choose to retire, I'm not too sure if Donald Trump's support even matters to him, because Trump lost Wisconsin in 2020. So basically, yeah, these are the basically competitive seats for 2022, and I think this is definitely something that Republicans should be worried about. But in the state of Missouri, that is where things have changed today, because Eric Greitens today announced that Kimberly Guilfoyle would be his national chair for his campaign. So Kimberly Guilfoyle is the girlfriend of Donald Trump Jr., and she basically joined Greitens' Senate campaign as the national chair. So that's a pretty high-ranking position, and just her joining the campaign really does not matter. She's just one person. She's also the ex-wife of Gavin Newsom, so that's pretty interesting. But for Kimberly Guilfoyle, she is basically Donald Trump's daughter-in-law if she and Donald Trump Jr. do get married. But the issue for everyone else in the race is that she has a very close and good relationship with Donald Trump. She spoke at the RNC. She's the one that spoke really loudly, really awkwardly, but for Kimberly Guilfoyle, she basically brings along Donald Trump essentially to the campaign. And Eric Greitens right now, the reason why his chances have soared over the last couple of hours is because he is expected to get the endorsement of Donald Trump. Now, of course, the endorsement of Donald Trump does not matter to that many people, but it does to a majority of the Republicans. A huge majority of the Republican Party will probably vote for Eric Greitens just because Trump told them to. This is definitely not going to work with independents or Democrats, but for the Republican Party, and he needs to win the Republican primary to win, to get a spot on the ballot. So for Eric Greitens, his chances have soared 6 cents just today. Let me reload it so we can see what the actual number is at this moment. It's still at 6. So Eric Greitens is now at 41. Eric Schmidt before this was leading, and he's now at 39 cents per share. If you look at the numbers over the 90-day trend here, Eric Greitens was behind Eric Schmidt basically throughout the entire campaign. Eric Greitens was never ahead of Eric Schmidt, and Schmidt just yesterday was at 39 to Greitens' 35. However, However, with the news today, over the 24-hour period, as you can see, Eric Greens has overtaken Eric Schmidt to be the front runner in this campaign. He's at 41, so even higher than the 40 he was just a couple of minutes ago. So definitely this is an issue for Eric Schmidt, who I think would be the best candidate for the GOP. But Eric Greens, he's of course the former governor of the state of Missouri, and the reason why he's such a bad candidate is because he resigned in 2018 after facing allegations of sexual blackmail, which is not something that's too great. So he's accused of secretly photographing a woman nude and then threatening to release those photos to buy her silence. So, and the issue for him is that the Republicans, the Republican Party in Missouri said there was good reason to believe that these accusations could be true. The Republican Party in the state was against him, and so that is why he ended up resigning. Whether or not it was, true or not, what he did, it's still definitely very unfortunate for him. And definitely not a good look for him, especially for a Senate campaign that's statewide. He did win the governor race, but if he ran for re-election, he probably was not going to win after this whole scandal. And then, you've seen candidates with scandals, with Cal Cunningham in North Carolina when he lost after his scandal, and Eric Greens also did divorce his wife earlier last year. So yeah, definitely his whole image has not been great over the last couple of years. And if you look at the margins, Missouri, it's really red on the presidential level. Trump won Missouri in 2020 by 15.4%. In 2016, Trump won it by 18%. However, on the Senate level, the incumbent here is Roy Blunt. Roy Blunt is, of course, the senator from Missouri. And in 2016, Roy Blunt only won re-election with 49% of the vote. He won re-election by a very narrow margin, and this was when, remember, Donald Trump won Missouri by 18 points on the same day. 18 points, Trump won Missouri. But Roy Blunt, the incumbent senator from the state, he represents the state specifically. He only won the state of Missouri, his Senate seat, his re-election, by less than 4%. That really was a really small, not less than 4, less than 3%. He won his re-election by 2.8%. If you look at the numbers here from 2016, as you can see, 2.8%. This was one of the narrowest wins for the Republican Party. Missouri was closer than Florida. It was closer than Georgia. It was closer than North Carolina. It was also closer than Indiana and Kentucky. So Missouri really was a very, very close race in 2016 on the Senate level. Only really Ron Johnson won Wisconsin by a larger margin. Pat Toomey did win Pennsylvania by a smaller margin. But really the margin here for Missouri really was really, really small. But on the Senate level, Missouri is a little bit more of a swing state. It's definitely still favoring the GOP, as you can see in the 2018 Senate race there. Claire McCaskill, running for a third term, lost to Josh Hawley by 5.8%. It was a pretty firm victory for Josh Hawley, but definitely still not the margin that you saw on the presidential level. Hawley now a really big trumper. Claire McCaskill in 2012, this was when, it did go red. Missouri was pretty much a red state by then. Claire McCaskill won Missouri, won her re-election with 15.7% as her margin in 2012. But if you do look at the presidential map in 2012, you'll see that Mitt Romney won it by 9.4%. So definitely Missouri is a little bit more of a swing state on the Senate level. It is more red definitely than blue now. It used to be a pretty even swing state. It used to be a bellwether state like Ohio, which is, a lot more red nowadays as well. But the problem for Missouri is that, Roy Blunt barely won in 2016. Yeah, you lose the incumbency factor. Incumbents do better. States like incumbents. But, you lose the incumbency factor for the GOP. You have someone new, but, this is someone that the state knows. This is their former governor who resigned because of allegations that they did really bad things. And, with him resigning, I don't think that was the best look. He was, potentially going to get impeached if he did not resign. So, I don't think it was a bad decision for him to make. It was definitely reasonable. But still, it's not a good look when you resign as the governor for sexual blackmail. And that is going to be the issue for the GOP. This is a race that they cannot lose. The Republican Party cannot lose the Senate race in Missouri. If this goes red, they're losing the Senate because the Democrats, they are still favored in Nevada Definitely they're favored in Nevada. They're also favored in the race in North Carolina, Arizona, and Georgia. They are also favored in those two races. They're even favored in Pennsylvania. They're more favored in Pennsylvania than they are in Georgia and Arizona. And Pennsylvania is currently held by Republican Richard Burr because John Fetterman is expected to be the Republican nominee or the Democratic nominee in Pennsylvania, and he's a very, very strong candidate that can do very, very well in the race. So John Fetterman definitely should be frightening for the GOP. He's the lieutenant governor of the state currently, and if he runs, he has a very, very good chance at flipping the state for them because Pat Toomey in 2016 barely won his re-election, and he's one of the more bipartisan senators. He did many bipartisan bills along with Joe Manchin. He also voted to impeach Donald Trump. So in 2018, not 2018, 2016, Pat Toomey only defeated his Democratic opponent by 1.4%. You add in an even stronger Democratic candidate and you take away the incumbency factor from the Republicans. It's definitely going to be a very, very tough race for them in the state of Pennsylvania. And this already puts Democrats at 51. They can lose Arizona, Georgia, or New Hampshire. They also do have a very good chance at Wisconsin and North Carolina, both held by Republicans currently. And in Missouri, I mean, if Missouri goes blue, that is going to be a disaster for the Republican Party because if you look at the races in which the Republicans are retiring in, I mean, these are basically just the swing states that are left. Iowa and Wisconsin are a little bit less likely. They have not announced, but it's very likely that they do retire. And so, yeah, I mean, all these states with these Republican retirees are going to be close except for Alabama. And with Missouri being, Eric Greens being the potential nominee, he's definitely someone that can win the GOP nomination. But on a statewide level, it's not too likely that he does really, really well. He may still win just because of how red Missouri is, but definitely it's not as red as, many people think, especially compared to the presidential results there. So this is definitely an issue for them because Democrats, they don't have to win anything if they want to win the Senate. They already control the Senate. All they have to do is not lose anything. And if they can gain a seat in Pennsylvania, which is currently very, very likely, they can even lose one of their seats in Arizona or Georgia. And I mean, on top of Pennsylvania, we see more developments in another Senate race, and that is the one in North Carolina, which I talked about a couple of days ago, where you have Republican incumbent Richard Burr, who is retiring. Richard Burr in 2016 was able to win re-election by 5.7%. It's definitely a respectable margin. It's not big. It's not too small either. 2020, Tom Tillis won re-election by 1.7% over Cal Cunningham, who did have a sexual scandal, which was actually, I would say, much better than Eric Greens' scandal in Missouri. So Cal Cunningham basically lost his chances there in North Carolina. But in 2016, Richard Burr barely won re-election. Not barely, but it wasn't any sort of large margin there. In 2010, Richard Burr won 11% with 11% of the vote. I forgot who his opponent was, but Richard Burr definitely, if he runs in 2022, he will face a pretty tough race, but he has decided to bow out of that race, and so that's going to be an issue because right now the 2022 North Carolina Republican Senate nomination is not going too well for the Republican Party. Definitely, these are candidates at the top. They can win the GOP nomination, but their chances of actually winning a statewide race are really not the best. So, you have another disgraced governor there. This is Pat McCrory, who is pretty much known for being a really bad governor in the state of North Carolina. He lost to Roy Cooper, and most people are happy that Roy Cooper is now the governor of North Carolina compared to Pat McCrory. So Pat McCrory was actually the incumbent governor. He won in 2012 with 54% of the vote, won by over 11 percentage points, but in 2016 he lost to Roy Cooper, who went on in 2020 to win re-election by 4.5%, winning 51.5% of the vote. So just a couple months ago, Roy Cooper won re-election, but in 2016, Roy Cooper was able to defeat Pat McCrory. It was a very narrow margin, but still, he was a Democrat, and he was running, defeating Pat McCrory in a race where on the presidential level in 2016 when he won, Trump won North Carolina by 3.7%, but Pat McCrory lost the Senate race. And I mean, this is basically the same thing. You have another really bad governor running. So in Missouri, this is the Democratic nomination in Missouri. They're all okay. Quentin Lucas is the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, and then Scott Sifton is a former member of the state Senate of Missouri. So they're both all right, nothing too special, honestly. But they're mildly popular. But just like in Missouri, you have Eric Greens, a bad governor, winning right now, and then in the state of North Carolina, you have the same thing about Governor Pat McCrory. Definitely better than Eric Greitens, but he is also in a much more competitive race. He's lost in the state, he's lost in a statewide race there before. And so for Pat McCrory, if you look at the betting odds right now, things are not looking good for him. I'm going to reload just to see again. So Pat McCrory right now, he has been leading for quite a long time, or not quite a long time. He's been leading generally over the last couple of days. This is a 24-hour graph, but looking at the 90-day trend here, essentially Pat McCrory announced his run a couple of days ago, and so he shot up to around 40. He's popular among the GOP, but not statewide. So Pat McCrory and Laura Trump have been basically the front runners for the last couple of days. But the big change here was that Scott Walker, or Mark Walker, he used to be the front runner. He used to have, he was at 55 at one point in early March, but once Pat McCrory ran, Pat McCrory basically would take away the base of Mark Walker, and so basically Mark Walker's chances dropped from 40 all the way down to now at 15. So he's essentially out of the race for right now. You see Richard Burr is on there as well, but Laura Trump 26 cents, Pat McCrory 26 cents. Laura Trump is the daughter-in-law of Donald Trump. She is, of course, the wife of Eric Trump, and if she does run, she's basically signaled that she's going to run. She has not, had an official announcement yet, but Laura Trump, she's widely expected to run. If she does run, she will pretty much get the endorsement of Donald Trump, which, out of these two candidates, this is even worse than Missouri. In Missouri, if Eric Schmidt wins, they could have a chance at winning in Missouri. Eric Greitens definitely does give the Republicans still a good chance, but definitely much less than Eric Schmidt. And, with Eric Greitens being someone that had to resign, isn't the best look for him. But in the state of North Carolina, you have your two frontrunners, Pat McCrory and Laura Trump. Both of these individuals would suck as nominees. Pat McCrory, you're the governor that lost. That's not going to be exactly the most appealing thing. And then for Laura Trump, she's the daughter of Donald Trump. She does not know the state well. She has ties to the state, but she really does not. She doesn't live in the state either. She's like Kelly Loeffler in Georgia, and that was disastrous for her. So nominating someone like Laura Trump for a state like North Carolina, I don't think would be the best. She just doesn't know the state, and the state doesn't know her, which is going to be an issue for independents and people like that. This was to say that Trump was able to carry, but that does not mean that his daughter-in-law will win, because Donald Trump is much more popular than all of his children. So looking at the numbers here, it's not looking good for the GOP. Again, these are individuals that are good if you want them to win the GOP nomination, but you want them to win the whole race. It's gonna be pretty difficult. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like this video down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below which party you think will win the 2022 Senate elections, and then whether or not you think Eric Greitens and Pat McCrory would be good candidates for Missouri and North Carolina. These two really close races where Republicans are retiring. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Make sure to join my Discord server, link at the very top of the description below. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.